See how self-sacrificing you guys are. So good to see you all this evening. I love, actually, I just love like groups this size. This is like such a fun size. Um, I want to talk for a little bit about coming out of the clouds, down a little bit further, and the kind of the on the ground of being a life group leader, and kind of what it does for us practically as people. Let me start with this question. What is a healthy church? Okay, here's a definition. A healthy church is a church that if you're in it for a long time, you are healthy. There you go. That's a good definition of a healthy church. And what that means practically is that your needs as a human being are being met, right? We have different kinds of needs. We have relational needs, we have intellectual needs, we have spiritual needs, and those needs are being met. So if you've been here for a while at the church, you may have seen this little graphic here. Okay, this is we sometimes say this is how you're meaningfully involved in the church. But there's another way of looking at this chart or this little quadrant thing here is to say this is another way in which your needs as a human being are being met. So worship and services. You know, you can worship at home, you can listen to music at home, you can listen to preaching at home. Like, why do you ever come to church? Answer, because you have a human need for belonging. You have a need for that, to belong to something greater than yourself, to worship in a group greater than yourself. That's designed by God. What about serve? Serve on teams. You have a need, actually. When you serve, you help other people, but it actually fulfills in you a need that you have to serve other people. God made you that way. What about, what's the other one up there? Studying classes, right? You have an intellectual need to understand the world, to understand about the history, the context, the story in which you live, how theology works, how to defend your faith. I mean, all these things. So we study in classes. But then there's this other quadrant, like live in groups. That's what we're here tonight to talk about. You have a need, and you know this, you have a need for attention. Right? If you've ever been lonely in your life, that's because that need's not being met. You feel like I'm all alone in this world. You don't have, your need for attention is not being met. You have a need for security. You have a need to know others and be known by others. You want to know the number one reason people leave this church, and for that reason they leave any church, is because they don't feel like they're being known. They don't feel like they're connected. There's all kinds of words for it, but that's the basic idea. They don't feel like they're known. They don't have relationships. In fact, they don't have, what was the simplest way to say that? They don't have friends. And life groups are like friend-making machines. They are. This is where friends are made. And I don't want to downplay this. I mean, that's not a silly statement. That is like, this is a core need of the human spirit to have a friend. And life groups is where this most naturally happens. I want to read Proverbs 18:24. Look at this. This says, a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And what this verse is doing is essentially contrasting Sunday morning with life groups. Okay? Right there, in Sunday morning, you get to know all this stuff about people, all this factual information, but you're dying. Right? You need a friend. You need to break that down a little smaller. And to illustrate this, let me give you a little chart here. I got this from some random Google Images search. I was looking for this concept, but I don't know where this comes from in reality. But this talks about the ramp of human communication. Look at the first stage there. Number one, cliche, small talk. How you doing? Right? Every relationship has to start this way. Even your marriage. You come home after work. How was the day? Great. That's cliche, totally cliche. But every relationship has to start there. And then it goes from there to facts, like what'd you do today? Right? Well, I did these things. I went shopping, got the groceries, got these emails, right? Answered these phone calls, whatever. Facts. And this is in the domain of command and control. But now notice what happens when you cross that threshold. You can barely see it there. Emotional participation begins. Okay, and that's where relationship building, friendship building begins. Now can you get to opinions, feelings, complete openness? Can you get there quickly? Can you get there on a Sunday morning? I mean, dude, this takes time. This takes time. So share your opinion about something. That's risky. That's risky business to share your opinion. What if they don't agree with me? I'm not sure I'm ready to share my opinion quite yet. How I feel about something. Like it upsets me. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm scared. I'm anxious. You need trust built up before you can share those things. And then complete openness, right? And complete openness is where you lay all your cards on the table. Someone knows you, and then guess what? A very critical need that you have in your life can be met. And I'm going to illustrate it with this verse. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. When you know somebody deeply as a friend and they tell you something you need to hear, guess what happens? Growth. Incredible, incredible growth. Incredible, incredible intimacy. Like a need of your soul is met when this can happen. And so life groups, that's the goal, is to get friends out of this thing, right? To actually have people who can point you to Jesus Christ. Now, we all want this, right? But why do so few of us have it? Well, it's the same reason that so few of us are Olympic athletes, right? We all want to be Olympic athletes, but it's very hard to do. There takes a lot of investment, a lot of time, and relationships are this way too. There's an investment required of us, an investment, a sacrifice to get a true friend. And I think, honestly, our digital age has totally obscured what a true friend really is. Totally. And here's the biggest way in which I think it's obscured, is that we are looking for friends that can do things for us. That's almost our definition of a friend. Like, oh, I like hobbies, this hobby, and so this guy likes the same hobby, and that does something for me when we connect on that level. So that's why he's my friend, right? That's the definition. But we're in the book of John. We'll get here in just a few chapters. Let's talk about John 15. Jesus redefines friendship here. He says this, greater love has no one than this, that someone lays down his life for his friends. Like that's the definition that Jesus is giving for friendship. Like the best kind of friend is the one who lays down his life for you, that gives, that sacrifices, right? And Jesus is going to demonstrate this very shortly. He's going to lay down his life for his friends. And then he says, you're my friends if you do what I command. You're like, well, what are you commanding, Jesus, that you have me do? And then in verses 15 and 16, he talks about bearing fruit. And then verse 17, he tells you what the command he wants you to do. These things I command you these things I command you that you love one another. The same way I loved you, the same exact way that I sacrificed for you, I want you to sacrifice for others. And that's hard. That's why we talk about the glories and sorrows of being a life group leader or being in a life group, because you've got to experience this. You've got to actually say, I am so exhausted from my week. Like, I don't feel like giving anything. I don't feel like it. I don't want to have to care for this really needy person. This guy's brand new to the church. I've got way too many relationships. I don't want to invite him over. I don't want to, right? That requires something of you, and you don't want to do that. But like, what did Jesus do? Like, he laid down his life. He did things that were difficult, that were hard. He invested in ways that were sorrowful for him. Right? You rake, you get leaves. You dig, you get gold. And that's the idea. Like, you reap what you sow. When you invest relationally, you receive relationally. Loving is hard work. So don't substitute that for mere liking. You know, the digital like is all about self. It's like about being pleased. I like that. Why? Because it pleases me. The Bible's definition of love is all about sacrifice. Like, I love you and I'm going to demonstrate that by sacrificing for you. So, if you're going to do that well in your groups, like, what's got to change? Right, that's the question. I want to, and so that's going to be kind of one of the table questions here for you. And just I want this conversation to continue. But even just right now, let's just popcorn this in the whole group here. What's it going to take for you to begin? I mean, if you're Christians, you love in general because the Spirit's in you. But what's it going to take to love better, more sacrificially? Like, what's going to have to change in your life? What types of things would maybe like be on your radar as you think about, man, I do want to love like Christ has loved me? I mean, let's hear a couple examples here in the room. Brave souls. Yeah, who wants to take care of that, right? Yes, Nathan.
It takes belief that it's worth it.
Totally, yeah. You got to have the long view in mind. You got to have your head past the clouds to the heavens, right? Yeah, it's worth it. Yeah, what kind of fear?
Just, fear of being known, fear of being shamed.
Totally. So you've got to actually open yourself up, and you're serving others by actually exposing your weakness.
Engagement and connection outside of a formal church setting, whether small group or big church Sunday.
Yeah. So you can even break this down further, right? Small group Sunday, small groups. But then even like what comes out of a small group setting, you might say, man, that one guy, I'm going to take him to coffee. I'm going to get to know that person. I'm going to invest in that person. That's good. Yeah, Brian.
I think laying down your life day by day, a practical thing can be identifying things that might distract the leader in the greater conversation. So like maybe a political conversation comes up and the leader suddenly goes from gospel conversations, just the whole group's off the rails. So, or whatever it might be. Some people it's diet, some people it's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I can lay that down for the cross.
I'm going to go ahead and eat some of this right now. Very good.
I had 3 of them.
Okay. Time, yeah. Yeah, like, I mean, if you're going to sacrifice for somebody, you got to have margin, right? You got to be willing to, I mean, like if you're on the breaking point of just your existence of sanity, and someone's like, hey, I need you to help me like move something, you're like, it's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. You've got to have a little bit of margin in your life to be able to do that kind of thing. Build it in.
Piggyback on your margin, I mean, for most people, this is going to be on top of their day job. You're not being compensated for this.
Totally, yeah. No, yeah.
You have to have a heart for service.
Totally, yeah.
You're not getting paid for this? I'm just going to let you.
I paid him to say that, but yeah. Okay, so we got it started here. Now, I want you to continue this conversation. Okay, what barriers do you see to real Christian communities today? So, I mean, it could be anything. Technology, I mean, just busyness, distraction, whatever. What barriers are out there? And why? Like, what can we do about those maybe? Why is human community necessary and unique? What happens to a soul that doesn't have this kind of thing? What changes might you need to make to experience true friendship in your life? And then pray for one another. Okay? So 8 minutes. Ready? Begin.